The weather's about to get very active over the next several days as we have multiple shots for severe weather, which begin today and run all the way throughout the week. This includes areas in the southern tier of the United States and eventually going into parts of maybe even the East Coast and the Midwest and Ohio Valley as we go into the later half of the week. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about these severe weather events that will be coming to the United States over the next several days. We are going to begin first with what's happening right now in the United States today that'll lead to all these severe weather events, and we actually have a severe weather event happening right now in the southern tier of the United States. Notice all of this convection that is blowing up right now across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and even back into Mississippi. We have some massive supercells that have been developing today. We actually had upwards of baseball-sized hail just east of Houston, Texas, not very long ago, and this particular disturbance is located back over in the Colorado and Kansas area. That is where this low pressure system essentially is able to pull all this moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico, leading to robust supercells that have been ongoing throughout the day today. In addition to this, we've been watching for tons of rainfall over the last several hours now, which is leading to a flooding concern. So there's a lot of stuff happening down here near Texas and Louisiana, and once we go into tonight into tomorrow morning, this is all going to shift to the east across parts of the Dixie Alley and even back into perhaps even the southern Ohio Valley, where there will be a chance for more severe weather tomorrow, which we might go live for, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Back over on the East Coast, things are relatively quiet right now, aside from all the cloud cover. We also have another low pressure system back up in Canada right now, which is not really impacting the United States unless you're back over in parts of the Midwest, where there's also another low-end threat for severe weather today, with hail and damaging winds being the main concern. Elsewhere, things are relatively quiet. It is probably going to stay that way for most of the United States for the next few days, unless you're really along the southern tier of the United States. And then once we go later into the week, I think things will get a bit more active for parts of the Midwest and even the Ohio Valley and more of the Great Plains. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next few days, and we'll begin with what's happening today. We do have a large slight risk across the Gulf Coast, basically from Mississippi back into Texas. That is where we also have a tornado watch that is in effect throughout the next few hours for parts of Texas and Louisiana, with a couple of tornadoes being possible. We might activate a live stream for that if needed, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. And then also further up to the north, that is your slight and marginal threat of severe weather back over in parts of the Midwest, and as well as back over into Michigan, where isolated wind and hail are the main concern over the next few hours. That marginal threat, by the way, goes all the way back up into Kansas and as well as Oklahoma. Overall, again, the threat for severe weather today, it should remain quite low, especially down in the southern tier of the United States, but I do think it grows in size for tomorrow, where all modes of severe weather will be possible, with significant hail, significant damaging winds, and even a few tornadoes will be possible tomorrow, anywhere from Texas all the way back into South Carolina. It does appear likely that we will be live for this tomorrow, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Here's your marginal and slight risk. So again, that's the area that we're watching for tomorrow. The greatest tornado threat will be across this corridor here from about Texas back into Alabama, and we also have an elevated damaging wind threat, which a few storms could produce damaging winds as high as 80 miles per hour. Here's that hail threat for tomorrow. Notice the hatched area here. That is where all those initial robust discrete cells will fire off across parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, even southern Arkansas. We could see some hailstones as high as the size of baseballs. And then further out to the east, that is where the more significant and robust damaging wind risk will be, from East Texas back into Alabama, where a few storms will have the capability of producing damaging winds over 80 miles per hour. And then here's your tornado risk for tomorrow. Once again, the corridor that I would be watching for the closest for this tornado risk is going to be from about southwest Georgia back into East Texas. But honestly, if you're anywhere in a green or brown shaded area, you should be vigilant and make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts and have a tornado action plan in place just in case you are under a warning for tomorrow. Now let's talk more about the timing for the severe weather, and we'll begin with this afternoon. Notice all those cells that'll be developing across parts of Texas and as well as back into parts of Louisiana, near the Houston area and back into western Louisiana. That is where more significant damaging wind and hail threat will exist. We could even get a few robust supercells back over in central Texas throughout the afternoon and evening, so make sure that you're staying weather aware there, closer to Abilene and just south of Abilene. Once we go into overnight tonight, storms overall weaker, but we will still have an ongoing damaging wind and and low tornado risk overnight tonight associated with this cluster of storms. And then once we go into Monday morning, so right around 6 a.m., another cluster of storms will push down to the southeast across parts of the Gulf Coast. We'll show you that here in just a second. And then once we go into the afternoon, another day of severe weather is ahead from Texas back into Oklahoma, where those storms will begin there with hail, wind, and maybe an isolated tornado. But that threat will increase as we go into the afternoon across parts of Louisiana and Arkansas, with even a few more robust supercells back over in Texas. And honestly, for tomorrow, I do think the majority of these storms are going to be hail and wind producers. We could definitely see a few tornadoes, but I think overall the wind shear is going to be very lacking for tomorrow. So overall, not a super favorable environment for tornadoes, but there should just be enough wind shear that will at least have maybe a couple or a few brief and weak tornadoes. Once we get closer to about 6 to 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, that line of storms will start to organize into more of a line, and that'll end up producing the threat for damaging winds and once again maybe some large hail. That hail threat will start to go down after about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight, or tomorrow night, sorry, with the main concern being damaging winds. And then eventually, as we go into the overnight hours, that line continues to push east across parts of the Gulf of Mexico. So if you know any fish there, make sure to let them know that storms are coming their way as we go into late Monday night. Here's the timing for the southeast. Notice that cluster of storms tonight and even into the overnight hours. So this is around 4 a.m. We'll have a line of storms pushing into eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southern Alabama. That'll be mostly a hail and wind threat, maybe a couple of tornadoes. And then once we get closer to tomorrow around lunchtime, notice that line is for the most part pushing offshore, but we could definitely get some of that storm activity in Florida. And then eventually through the afternoon hours, that line of storms develops. Once we get closer to about 10 o'clock tomorrow night, that line is going to really start to become more organized with some widely scattered damaging winds anywhere from central Alabama back into Louisiana. And eventually that line will be mostly offshore. And then by the time we go into Tuesday morning, watch out if you're in Florida, because that damaging wind threat will definitely be in play if you're in parts of Florida and maybe even into southern Georgia for that time frame. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential beyond today and tomorrow, because overall the weather pattern right now is very active with lots of showers and storms, but we don't really have any sort of organized significant severe weather threat aside from maybe tomorrow. But even tomorrow doesn't look to be super significant like what we saw about a week ago with all those storms, or even just last week. So let's talk more about the jet stream. This gives us an idea of the weather patterns that are happening across the United States. And here's that low pressure system as we go into Monday. And I want to point this out because this is probably going to be our most significant storm over the next 4 or 5 days. And notice the southwesterly flow. It is relatively weak across parts of Louisiana and Arkansas. So we aren't going to have a whole lot of wind shear, in my opinion, for this particular day. So that tornado risk, again, should remain low. But we have enough of a low-level wind. We have enough of a veering profile, so enough spin basically in the atmosphere for there to be a couple or a few tornadoes that are brief and weak. But it doesn't look like anything that is super organized that's going to be strong or even long-tracked when it comes to tornadoes. Once we go into Tuesday afternoon and evening, that threat continues to move eastbound with a pretty weak low or upper level flow across parts of the southeast. And then once we go into Wednesday and eventually into Thursday, we are going to have another storm developing probably as we go into Friday into Saturday, but things will probably stay pretty quiet for Wednesday and Thursday. Once we go into Friday into Saturday, we'll have more showers and storms across parts of the southern plains, and then another large scale low pressure system will attempt to develop as we go into Friday and Saturday. And if this does end up happening, this would be a negatively tilted trough. That means that as we go into Friday, we could get some sort of severe weather event in the Ohio Valley or even into Saturday, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. And even then, the flow here on the eastern side of this trough looks very weak in the upper levels. So that might be an issue as well. Moisture pull, instability, all those things could be issues as we go into Friday or Saturday. So there's no reason to panic. I don't think this is going to be yet at least a severe weather outbreak, but it is going to be something to watch for, I think, over the long term. So over the next few days, showers and storms will continue across the southern plains, the southeast. We'll even get some of that in the Ohio Valley and Midwest, but no significant severe weather is in the forecast. Wednesday looks like a little bit of a break, maybe some severe weather in Oklahoma, but the threat should stay low. By Thursday, more severe storms possible in the central and southern plains, but again, the risk overall right now is expected to remain low. By the time we go into Friday morning, that next activity moves into the Midwest where we could get some sort of severe weather weather event in the Midwest on Friday. A lot of uncertainty, though, does remain there. And by the time we go into Saturday, things look to become a bit more disorganized on the East Coast with that system. And then by the time we go into Sunday into Monday of next week, things become very uncertain. But make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we'll be keeping you posted with the latest as we get closer to all these severe weather events.